Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome AIPAC Director of Policy and Government Affairs, Dr. Marvin Feuer, Ambassador Brad Gordon, and Director of Legislative Strategy, Ester Kurz.
Good morning. Hey. Policy Conference is all about learning, leading, and lobbying, of course. So today, thousands of us will take action on Capitol Hill to stand united with Israel. We will come together to urge members of Congress to support legislative efforts which enhance the U.S.-Israel relationship.
AIPAC's lobbying agenda this year is focused on three core issues: responding to Iran's regional aggression, supporting direct negotiations, not imposed solutions, and providing Israel with much-needed security assistance.
For over 25 years, AIPAC has been instrumental in bringing the problems of Iran's nuclear program to Congress and the threat posed by Iran. We have worked with successive administrations and Congresses to peacefully resolve the Iranian nuclear challenge. But last summer's nuclear deal with Iran, a deal that we opposed, only fueled Iran's aggressive behavior. As a result of that deal, Iran's nuclear program has not been dismantled, it's been delayed.
Iran remains the greatest long-term threat to U.S. interests in the region and an existential threat to Israel. Since the 2013 election of President Hassan Rouhani, Iran has violated UN Security Council resolutions multiple times by test-firing ballistic missiles and by deploying up to 2,000 Iranian Revolutionary Guard soldiers to Syria. Also, Iran has violated the human rights of its citizens, including increased numbers of executions and the heightened repression of women, minorities, journalists, and political dissidents. And since the nuclear deal was implemented in January of this year, Iran has been emboldened by access to over $100 billion in unfrozen assets.
Even if Iran abides by the agreement, most restraints on its nuclear program will disappear in only 15 years. But if Iran violates the deal, if it cheats and prepares secretly for a nuclear breakout, we will have only a limited amount of time to react. To deter Iranian nuclear cheating, we need to show resolve today when Iran is clearly violating its other international agreements. Which brings us to our first message to Congress. America must forthrightly and consistently confront Tehran's dangerous behavior.
When we go to the Hill today, we will ask Congress to support the reauthorization of the Iran Sanctions Act and penalties on Iran for its continuing ballistic missile development. Also, we will ask Congress to support a tough response if Iran violates its other international obligations. Reauthorization does not revisit the nuclear deal. Instead, it ensures that the United States has the tools necessary and in place should Iran violate the deal. Because if Congress does not act, the Iran Sanctions Act, the very core of the sanctions architecture, will expire at the end of 2016. Now, you might get pushback from some on Capitol Hill. You might hear reauthorization would violate U.S. commitments under the deal. But that is incorrect. The deal negotiated last summer clearly anticipated that the Iran Sanctions Act would be renewed. The point to make to Congress is that reauthorization does not violate the deal because it imposes no new sanctions. It simply maintains the existing sanctions architecture.
I now want to turn to our second message for Congress. America must support direct negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians, not imposed solutions. Since its existence, Israel has actively sought peace with its Arab neighbors and now actively supports a two-state solution, a Jewish state living side by side in peace with a demilitarized Palestinian state. However, for the past 2 years, the Palestinians have refused to negotiate with Israel.
Instead, the Palestinian Authority has continued to incite violence against Israeli citizens and delegitimize Israel in the international arena. Efforts by the Palestinians and others to go to the UN to pressure Israel without actually negotiating and compromising only undermine the prospects for peace. Peace can only be realized when both Israel and the Palestinians sit down together and negotiate an agreement with each other. And then implement that agreement in good faith, because a lasting peace cannot be imposed by outsiders.
When you visit the House, you will ask your representatives to sign the bipartisan letter co-authored by Representatives Nita Lowey and Kay Granger, joined by their colleagues Karen Bass, Chris Smith, Ted Deutsch, and Ileana Ros-Lehtinen. The letter encourages support for a two-state solution and expresses concern with the potential UN initiatives that would hinder the prospects for peace. The letter urges the President to continue insisting that a durable agreement can be achieved only at the negotiating table and not the UN. And it urges a continued commitment to the U.S. long-standing policy to veto one-sided resolutions at the Security Council. In the Senate, we will ask senators to urge the administration to oppose any effort to bypass direct negotiations and impose solutions at the UN.
This brings us to our third message for Congress: ensuring continued security assistance to Israel. Israel faces the real possibility that the instability and chaos gripping the Middle East will spill over and directly threaten the Jewish state. Today, Al-Qaeda affiliates, ISIS, and Iran's Revolutionary Guards are only miles from Israel's borders. Moreover, Israel faces growing challenges like cyber attacks, missile barrages, tunnels, and the future risk of a nuclear-armed Iran. These threats require Israel to increase the strength and adaptability of its armed forces and to purchase increased quantities of very expensive weaponry.
Israel relies on our help to meet these threats. For decades, America has understood that it is in our national interest that Israel has the resources it needs to respond decisively both to near-term threats like Hezbollah and longer-term threats like a nuclear-armed Iran. Last month, President Obama submitted this year's budget to Congress, including $3.1 billion in security assistance for Israel. This funding is in accordance with the Memorandum of Understanding between the United States and Israel. Since this MOU expires in 2018, discussions are now underway to conclude a new, more expansive agreement.
So today, we will ask members of Congress to fully fund security assistance to Israel this year, and we will ask members to encourage the administration to conclude a new memorandum of understanding with Israel, one that helps ensure Israel's defense needs are met. We will ask senators to sign on to a letter co-authored by Senators Chris Coons and Lindsey Graham. The letter states support for a new agreement with Israel that includes robust levels of aid under current terms.
This is our path forward. Responding to Iran's aggression in the region,
supporting direct negotiations, not imposed solutions,
and providing Israel with much-needed assistance. This is our path to preserving the safety of Israel and of our country. And this is your message. Thank you.